Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Bennett, host of the Ramble, heard here and seen here on GabNet, Tuesday through Fridays, live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and I got some big news for you. Our program has moved its live video from Facebook Live to YouTube Live. After extensive tests in our GabNet laboratories of at least 10 minutes, our mind was made up and we've come to the conclusion that YouTube is superior not only in video quality, but audio as well. And then there's the ease of watching it. Here's what you do. Simply point your browser to youtube.com/Bolo Bennett/live. That's youtube.com/Bolo Bennett, BOLOBENNETT/live, and you're there. The player is waiting, and you do nothing, and when the show begins, so does the player. Couldn't be simpler. In fact, tag that page as a permanent tab on your browser, and you're ready to go. And if all of this is too vexing for you, well, just go to gabnet.net near showtime, and the player in the middle of the page will start to play when we're on. We're thrilled with the new quality our move has provided, and while you're there, would you do me a favor and please subscribe to our channel? No, I beg you to. Hey, listen to me, I'm groveling, okay? I know, it's pathetic. I'm sorry, I'm debasing myself, and I really shouldn't be. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, the history of talk radio. Political opinions have been a staple of radio since the early 1920s. Talk radio as a listener participation format has existed since at least the mid-1940s. WMCA New York's Barry Gray was bored with playing music and put a telephone receiver up to his microphone to talk with band leader Woody Herman. This was soon followed by listener call-ins. In 1948, disc jockey Alan Courtney began a call-in program on WGBS Miami. The Alan Courtney Open Phone Forum was a conservative and anti-communist political forum with coverage area over the southeast United States and Cuba. In the 50s, Joe Pine, John Nebel, and Gene Shepard were among the first to explore the medium. In recent years, talk radio has gained popularity with many new formats flourishing, including all sports in 1986 with the birth of WFAN New York. The subject matter for these formats are different, but the structure has remained the same for all these years. You might say talk radio is a 20th century format, until now that is. It's 2014. And radio pioneer and innovator Alex Bennett introduces the Citizen Panel on GabNet, the first revolutionary idea in the format since its inception. The Citizen Panel allows for an open discussion to take place between the host and many listeners all at the same time. Listeners claim that it's addictive, producing stimulating discussions on any topic from politics to movies and entertainment. It's not liberal or conservative. It's open to all opinions and ideas. Log on to gabnet.net to listen and find out how you can participate. Listen to the programs on GabNet and take a step into 21st century talk radio. Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hello everybody, how are you? It's time for the Ramble. We go until midnight Eastern Time out here on the right coast of the United States of America. Every couple of weeks we like to check in with my ex-wife, and I think we're going to do that tonight. In fact, all I got to do is push a button here and we'll be ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, out to Lake Oswego, Oregon we go, and we meet up with Ronnie Bennett from her blog, timegoesby.net.
Yes.
Always have to remember that. And if she's a little out of sync, it's only because it's Skype. You know, we always have to say that. And sometimes there's a glitch, and all of a sudden you're in sync. It's strange. How are you, dear? You are in sync because things are a little better, right?
I can't see from your point of view. I have to trust what you say.
Well, we're talking about the fact that you have a little thing going with your CT scan, which you were all worried about, of course, naturally, and it came out okay. Came out better than it was supposed to.
You know, I drifted there for a moment. You're talking about my tests, cancer tests.
Yeah.
It was fabulous. It was fabulous. I was really worried about it. And then the doctor tells me that the, whatever they call them, lesions in my lung where there's cancer, that 50% of them are not visible. That doesn't mean they're not there, but they've shrunk a lot. And the same thing with the one in my peritoneum. Mm-hmm. And he was so pleased with how it works that now we're scheduling the test every 2 months. He said if the next one in 2 months is as good as this one, we will expand the interval in between tests to 3 months.
Wow.
So this is good news.
Yeah, that's very good news.
Yes, so it won't cure my cancer, but it means I have a longer, healthier life.
Well, that's good. In other words, what it's saying is the chemo is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's good news. That's very good news.
Yes.
So where does it go from here? I guess
I just keep going every 2 weeks for chemo. Mm-hmm. I'm terribly lucky with the chemo that for all of the awful potential side effects they tell me about, that not everybody gets them all, but some of them are pretty awful. Like I can't even stand the thought of if I lost my fingernails. That's pretty awful. But the worst I've had is chemo fatigue, and that's not as bad as it was the first or second time I took this chemo. So I guess I was Mother Teresa in my last life. I'm really, really lucky.
Wow. I'm so happy. When I saw that news, you published it on your blog. When I saw that news, I kind of went, whoop-de-doo. I was like,
yeah, me too.
Me
too.
Well, yeah, but now you were, let's talk about something. I have to tell everybody, this is the second time we've done this interview today, because the last time something went wrong with the equipment, which was also what was the problem with our marriage. But anyway, no, something was wrong. I don't know if we did 25 sterling, wonderful minutes, which it recorded about 1 minute and 44 seconds of it, and then it like froze up, and I don't know why. I have no idea. Anyway,
I'm tireder now, though.
She's tireder now. But what we got into the last time, and I think we have to kind of reconstruct it here because I think it is important, was that you did a certain kind of therapy, which is, shall we say, not normal therapy.
It's been normal for 10 or 20 or 40,000 years.
Well, it was normal. It was normal when I was doing those things, okay? But that's not the point. The point is that it's still considered unorthodox, maybe, to a certain extent. I mean,
let me tell you something about that. Tell them what it is. What we're talking about is magic mushrooms or psilocybin. And at the end of December, I was able to have a guided trip, the purpose of which was to help my fear of dying. Mm-hmm. And, back in the 60s, when everybody was doing magic mushrooms and LSD and smoking lots of pot and stuff, that caused the government to pretty much shut down research into those drugs. Mm-hmm. And since then, very slowly it's come back, and some very big deal research places at Johns Hopkins and at NYU and the University of California and 40 or 50 other places have been testing it with volunteers for things like PTSD, anxiety, depression, and I think maybe even schizophrenia. And it showed remarkable results in helping people with these conditions. And in fact, using psilocybin and some other psychedelics for this kind of treatment and therapy is on the ballot for 2020 in Oregon and in Denver. And it's really becoming acceptable to the public. More than half, something like I think 70% in a recent survey, approved the use of these psychedelics for these purposes. So this is very exciting. And one of the things I've done is tell my doctors when I'm seeing them, my cancer doctors, and I just had lunch with some friends who were telling me that they mentioned it to their physician, the woman, the wife of the couple I had lunch with, had mentioned it to her doctor, and he got very excited about it, and he knew a lot about it. He'd read Michael Pollan's book about it. And the same thing has happened with the 3 or 4 doctors at my medical center that I've told about it. They're all wildly interested in how much this could help. So I think that we're finally on the way to being able to use this kind of therapy to great good use for a lot of people. It's not just end of life that I use it for. People use it in midlife for those things that I mentioned, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and other conditions. So it's very exciting that because of the tests that have been done, more than 90% of the participants found that it worked for them. That doesn't happen too much in life.
In research. Now, this was not cheap, right? This cost you some bucks.
This is not what?
This was not cheap.
In what I did, it was not. It will not be wildly expensive in the future.
Yeah, once it's made. How can we? Is legal the word here?
Well, the point is to make it legal. At least, you know how marijuana in the states where it's legal first started as a medical thing, and then they expanded it to recreational.
Yeah.
I suspect this will follow the same trajectory. At first, it will be allowed for experimental treatment, and then it will expand.
Okay, now let's backtrack a little bit here and ask, what was your specific reason for going for the therapy? What kind of anxiety did you have?
It just the most horrible attacks of fear about dying from the cancer.
I mean,
it was like every cell in my body would kind of shake like this, and I couldn't even think, and it would go on for 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 4, before it faded away. It was just, and it would happen to me 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
And it was just, and it wasn't that I always was. I always knew I was afraid of it, and I had looked into these kinds of drugs long before Michael Pollan's book and long before I was diagnosed with cancer. And I knew that if I was ever in a position in my life like I am now, where, they're telling me that, this disease is going to kill me, there's nothing that can cure it. I always knew I would look to do this long before I had cancer. So I was able to. It's not easy to find somebody to be your guide, but I was terribly lucky and found somebody who could help me.
Well, to begin with, they have to have A, the drug, B, they have to be able to guide you. They have to be good at what they do. And so how did you, when you shopped for somebody, and I'm sure you did, I'm sure you didn't take the first person that came along, what kind of questions did you have to ask, and what kind of information did you have to have?
First of all, you can't just call up somebody. Nobody knows. It's a Schedule I drug.
Yeah.
If these people are caught, they go to jail.
Okay.
I mean, this is not fooling around stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't just look it up on the internet, and call somebody. It has to go through word of mouth. And that's what I had to do, and I got terribly lucky, because if I still lived in New York, I think I still know enough about the underground drug market that I could have messed around and found somebody to do this. I don't know that where I live now. I don't know how to do that here. And I just got lucky that a friend of mine, who we had never, ever, ever discussed this, saw a report about my cancer online.
Right.
And sent me a very, very short email that said, "Are you interested?" A couple of other things, and then he said, "Are you interested in end-of-life psychedelics?" Well, I was right in the middle of trying to figure out how I was going to find someone to do this with, and he pointed the way, and it worked out beautifully.
Yeah. And once you got a hold of the person, it was easy enough to get them to go along with you, or did you have to go through a process?
We had an hour and a half conversation. I think she wanted to be sure she could trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very sorry I just said she. And as I said, we talked for a long time. We came to like each other. We talked a lot about what the experience would be, what our experiences, both hers as a guide and me as a. I took some drugs back in the 60s. We did that together, you know.
Would you be revealing too much if you were to answer my question about, did this person have some kind of credentials? In other words, being a doctor or a psychiatrist?
Is giving people a piece of paper about this. It's very widespread. There are many people doing this guidance. But
sometimes you would find that, for instance, a psychiatrist might do this on the side.
No, he wouldn't.
As an example. Why not?
Because he is licensed.
Oh, okay.
And would go to jail.
Well, there were doctors who used to give abortions who believed in it and took a chance with their own licenses in the old days. That's why I'm asking. Please,
Well, I don't know what you would license. The people who do this, the guides who do this, have been doing it for many years.
Yeah.
The person I went to has been doing it for 20 years.
Right.
They know a lot more than the doctors do about this.
Right. So the process is you take the psilocybin. It takes how long? It took how long to grab hold? About 40 minutes or something like that? 30 minutes?
For me, about 20 minutes.
Really? And then what was the first image you saw that you suddenly realized you were high?
It was funny. We were in this beautiful room the guide has, and it looks out on the edge of a forest. And in front of the trees were very tall bushes, I'd say like up to my shoulders, but they were across the ways, and I was looking out the window. And they started doing this, the bushes, which reminded me of years and years ago and some acid trips.
Yes.
And that
in
was
fact, our first acid trip.
But mostly it's very interior. It's not so much outside.
Our first acid trips we took together. We were living out in that townhouse. And that's where we had our first acid trip.
Yes.
And I remember walking into the bathroom, and all of a sudden my face started melting in front of me, and I said, "Jesus Christ, this stuff really works."
This was much more interior experience.
Well, I think I did magic mushrooms once, and each one of these drugs, I mean, LSD is a chemical compound, whereas magic mushrooms are an organic compound, and they have different highs. And if you look at, you know what I seem to remember is I did do magic mushrooms, or maybe I did mescaline, and what I saw was the Rosetta Stone, and I figured, Jesus, this is where they came up with it. You know, I mean, they were high on mushrooms and cactus, but so you're out to mitigate your fears. What did you discover, and how did you discover it?
Well, you can't talk about that. Really, I mean, Michael Pollan talks about this in a very, very long piece online, 10 or 12 pages, that there are not words to talk about what an experience is. It's just, he said he felt like a jerk when you start saying, oh, I just felt like there was peace everywhere and peace on earth, you know, and you feel like such a jerk saying things like that. And you find yourself saying that over and over because there are not the words for it.
Right.
It just doesn't exist. And in my case, you know, certainly there are hallucinations, not ever scary ones with me, but there were lots and lots of doors that went into white, empty rooms. They were all white and no furniture, just empty. And then eventually I went through one, the door was ajar, and I went, you know, behind it. I went from here and the stairs around it. And it was then on that one, after I'd done that several times, that I came to see, feel, believe, I don't know what's the right word, that dying was only the other side of living, and it was perfectly okay, that you can't have one without the other. As with everything on earth, everything is born and lives and dies.
Yeah. I mean,
that was okay. It's as it should be.
Yeah.
And I wonder, sometimes, because in this country, and maybe a lot of Western countries, we have hidden death away. It doesn't happen around the family anymore, and people aren't there when somebody is dying unless they're hanging out in the hospital or some other place with someone. But we don't make it part of life the way it was for most of the history of humankind. Mm-hmm. And so it's a great mystery. We're not allowed to talk about it. And it makes a lot of fear. And I think, particularly since this cancer came along, and particularly since the magic mushroom session, the dying is part of living. It should be part of our lives. Mm-hmm. When I was a little kid, that was true. About half my friends when I was a kid had a grandparent living with them. Some were healthy, some were not.
Right.
But the kids were just as much a part of taking care, if that was necessary, of the grandparent as the parents were. And we mostly don't do that. We don't have our grandparents in our homes anymore. We don't see old people as they get older and what happens to them. Yeah. That all happens in secret now.
Yeah.
So we don't know very much about dying anymore.
So you went through this experience, and by the way, when you see these doors and so on, were your eyes open? Were you closed? Were they closed?
No, they're closed.
They were closed. So you were dreaming a lot of this stuff.
Don't try to be too specific about it. It's not talkable about that way.
I'm curious. What can I say?
No, it's not about curiosity. I'm telling you that those questions can't be answered.
Yeah. Somebody once said to me, about marijuana, just something as simple as marijuana. Can you describe your marijuana high? And it's very hard to describe. You can use all kinds of words like, well, you're a little this and that, but you can't really describe the feeling.
Well, except that you're really slow and you eat a lot of candy.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so the question I have here is, now you're through with this, and it lasted how long? How long did the session last? I guess
about 5 hours.
About 5 hours, and you come back home, and now has that fear kind of mitigated itself completely, or
have I lost it?
Have you lost it, or
no?
Do you still live with the fear, but you understand it?
No, I just don't feel very afraid of it.
I see. Okay. So what this did is help you deal with the fear.
That was the point.
Yeah.
And what we did, I arrived at the guide's house the night before we were going to do that, and we had dinner, mm-hmm. and it was explained to me what would happen and how we would do this, and mm-hmm. and I was asked to talk about what my goal was, which was to deal with fear of dying.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also added in, hey, if you could throw that in, I'd like to know what the meaning of life is.
Yeah, if you could just get a little extra bonus, yeah.
And so we had breakfast the next morning, and she measured out the mushrooms, and a certain amount depending on my weight, and excuse me, and we did that.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, I stayed another night,
mm-hmm.
and the next morning we talked about living with it and what it should mean to my life.
I have a paralyzing fear of death. I always have, and ever since I was a kid. And now that I get closer to that point, I'm even more depressed by it. If this became legal for medicinal purposes, okay, could you see this as just for somebody like myself who's not dying but who wants to deal with the latter part of my life?
It's not about dying. Most people, midlife, it's not that they have a disease that's going to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
They have issues, whether it's anxiety, depression, PTSD, some other conditions that they want to explore and try to help themselves with. And it seems to work dramatically, as I told you about the research that's being done.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I've read about it being used on people like me who are old and facing dying,
right,
is that that these research hospitals have to get permission from the FDA to use this to do research with, because mm-hmm. it's a Schedule I drug.
Right.
And one of the ways that they are been able to get those permissions, I think, from what I've read, is that they tell the politicians and the people that are all scared that we might have a little fun, with this, sorry, I'm having a chemo brain moment. Is that if they tell these people that can give permissions that we're going to do this with these old people because of their fear of dying, it's easier for politicians or administrators who make these decisions to say, oh, well, they're old anyway, go ahead and try it. And that's a foot in the door for other people and moving the idea forward that we actually can treat people with these psychedelic drugs that people have ignored for too long, and for centuries before us, people have used these drugs to good effect.
I always felt that LSD got a bad shake because
much as all of the psychedelics.
Because I think there were definite legitimate uses for LSD, and I think
apparently a lot of Americans do, because of that survey that I saw, that way over half approved the use of how it was used for me and how the researchers wish to use it. Listen, before we get to the end of this, I've got to ask you a question, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Renee Collins. Do you know Renee Collins?
Of course I know Renee Collins. She's a regular caller to my my podcast, but she hasn't called me in about a month and a half or so. And it usually happens around this time of the year. So I wrote her, and I said that I was wondering if she was okay and so on. And she wrote back, and she said, yeah, I'm okay, but it's that time of the year. My husband died this time of the year, and I kind of go into hibernation. And, it was a very nice letter back. And then at the end, she said, could you give me Ronnie's address? I'd like to send her a pineapple. Well, apparently she did more than a pineapple, right?
Well, see, I got this box yesterday that weighed almost nothing.
Yeah.
With this little envelope with a card in it for a gift certificate to Whole Foods.
Whole Foods.
From her.
Right.
From her. Isn't that nice?
That's, who knows?
No maybe. Pineapple, unless they have them for sale at Whole Foods.
Yeah. Well, she
sent me a note and said that if I wanted a pineapple, let her know. Yeah. She's very nice.
No, well, she lives in Hawaii, and she.
That's for the pineapple stuff.
Yeah, and okay. And when she asked for your address, sometimes I'm a little reticent to give out addresses and so on. But in this case, I thought it would be a very nice thing because she's a very nice lady.
And you know her, so that's okay.
Yeah, I know her. Yeah, she, in fact, when I was inducted into the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame, she came to my induction.
Oh, that's nice.
That's nice. And I didn't even know her at the time. I think I had met her maybe the first time there. So she's been a fan for years, and she said she was watching your stuff, and she's really been taken back by this. And I told you this when we recorded earlier. I'm going to say it again. I think what you're doing is very, very important. It's probably therapeutic on some level for you. But I think it's very helpful to people who are in the same situation. Although, as you have said, everybody's mileage may vary.
Yes.
But certainly hearing somebody talk about it can make them feel better about it and about the trip they're taking.
Well, one of the things that I ran into when I was first diagnosed and thinking about what was I going to say on the blog or not say and what this was all about, is that most of what is written for people who have medical death sentences, maybe we could call them, it's mostly written from caregivers' point of view. 95% of it that's any good that I could find was from caregivers' point of view. And they talk about taking care of the patient as though they're a little kid in a lot of ways and can't make their own decisions. Now, certainly there are people that have problems that they can't make decisions for themselves, but most of us can, and nobody has much written about it from the patient's point of view of what you go through, what your doubts are, what you're scared of, what is okay, how you come to live with this, and all the stuff that comes up, and the silly little things too. I mean, I just mentioned chemo brain. Right after chemo, every 2 weeks, for 2 or 3 days, it's like right now talking to you that there's some fuzzy cloud between me and the screen. So, you know, my brain just isn't as functional as it will be in another day or two again. And what that's like, I can, if I'm trying to write something, if I concentrate during chemo brain, I can do it if I really concentrate hard. What I can't do is follow instructions very well. Like if I were trying to do a recipe, and it said, you know, 2/3 cup of sugar, and the next thing it said a teaspoon of salt. If I walked away to get those things, I would forget what I was looking for. You know, so it doesn't work very well.
That happens to me, and I'm not even on chemo. So, you know.
Me?
That happens to me, and I'm not even on chemo. Anyway, listen, we've run out of time, but I want to remind people that you can be found at timegoesby.net. And hopefully we can hear from you again in another couple of weeks and discuss more. This has been great, and I hope it recorded this time.
I do too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie Bennett. Thanks, Ronnie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is Gabby, the Great American Broadcast Network.
And here we are, and off we go into the wild blue yonder of the Ramble. That's Ronnie, and we'll talk with her again in a couple of weeks. And it's so good to hear that, you know, things are better. My microphone, see it move? I move it, it makes that sound. I bought this thing, but it doesn't. I used to keep like tissue paper under it so it wouldn't make noise, and I think maybe I will have to do that again. See, I take this. Let me. By the way, let me open up the Skype line so people will be able to call, and you can see how I do wonderful pieces of magic here to make things work. You just take some paper and you double it over, see, and I put it under the leg, under the foot of this thing. And then I take another one and I double it over a couple of times there and put it under there. And then I take another one, and I bet this isn't going to work. I'm going to look like an asshole. And then I will put this under here like that, and this is it's quieter. It's quieter. Let me see here. Let me just do this over a couple of times there on that one, because that one was too thin. And there, now I can move it around. If I move it around a little bit, you're not going to hear the same kind of noise. Anyway, we're waiting for people to call. That's what happens on this program. We just wait for people to call. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So most of the time they call, though. And I'm waiting for, like, you know, who's going to be the first tonight. You know what? I have these earphones that have foam on them, right, to stick in your ear, and I like those because they work really well in closing off the ear, right? And what happens is you squeeze them, and then you put them in your ear, and then the foam expands and makes a seal in your ear. But for some reason, this ear over here is having trouble holding it. And I went and just got some new stuff, and it's still not working. Well, anyway, here comes Charles Wallace, ladies and gentlemen, and here comes Phil Meyer as well. There we go. There's both of them. Here comes there. They pop in like that, and there's Charles Wallace. Yep. Okay, we got the two of you already. Oh, that's off to a good start tonight.
I never can beat Phil in.
We're not. We're not going to hear from Jeff Stein. Actually, you were first, Charles, tonight. You really were, but you didn't pop in as fast as his did. So, you know.
Well, for your microphone dilemma,
yeah.
Why don't you get one of these?
Well, I don't want one of those.
Well, it would stop it from bouncing.
Well, it would. It wouldn't stop it from bouncing. The only problem I have, see, is when I move it back and forth like that. The reason I can't do it, if you saw the setup here, you would see why I couldn't put one of those in. You know, and then they would come in the way of my, you know. Yeah, I may find some other stand for this, but you know, this is
all right.
Okay.
Not a problem. I have something I'll send you. It's a small Persian rug about the size of a mouse pad, and you put the stand on that.
Yeah, wouldn't you know he'd be sending me a rug? Yeah. It's just something you cut off another rug, right?
No. Let me.
Yeah. Well, that would be nice. It doesn't take up too much room here. That's the other problem. See, I have space considerations here, and it causes a major problem for me. Yes, Phil. Here we go. Oh, that's very nice. Yeah, but I think it's too big. I don't know if it would fit here right. Actually, I could probably put it. Yeah, I could. Yeah. But I don't know how big your head is. So I can't tell by using that comparison. But
okay, iPhone.
Yeah.
And rug.
Well, iPhone or rug. Yeah, you know, I probably could somehow fit it somewhere here. You know, but
put it under the stand.
Hey, send it to me. What the hell? You know, you got nothing.
All right.
You know, all you have to do during the day is work. You know. So how you doing, Charles?
I'm doing pretty good.
He's become a regular. What I love about this is you become a regular again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I hope you don't meet another woman.
I don't think there's much danger of that.
Yes. Well, I mean, I still, you know, I don't know. Do you have the small iPhone or a large iPhone?
I have the small one, the iPhone 10. The original one.
In case you're listening to us on just audio only, folks, what he's doing is he's constantly holding up various objects like his head and whatever to show me what's gonna work and not work. So, you know, whatever. But anyway, so let me see here. Oh, here comes Rob. Oh, good. I always love to have Rob on the show. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah. Another.
How's it going?
Did you just? Were you echoing? Say something, Rob.
What?
Say something. Huh?
For some reason, my headset isn't working. Let me check out why.
Have a nasally sound.
I think probably because you've got what you're doing this with a laptop, right? And so he's probably using the camera and the phone and the laptop is what's coming through. So
yeah, for some reason, this is the first time this has ever happened. Let me try a different mic board.
Oh, they're crackling. You're in and out.
Yeah, how about now? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
That's better.
There we go.
Yeah,
the USB port on the right side of the computer wasn't working. It's weird.
Yeah, are you that happy with audio delivery through USB?
Oh, well, I never think about it. I'm not doing anything that high quality with it.
Yeah, because this is how I'm doing it now. I've had to get used to a whole new dynamic.
With the new board. Yeah.
With the new board, it has a USB out, and the USB out goes into the Mac Pro, which doesn't have a line in anymore. They don't put line ins anymore on Macs, and so you have to do it through a USB port. And before I was using some little dongle that I bought, and that was okay, but it had its series of problems. But this thing seems to be just fine. But there's no way of regulating the amount of sound that's going into the what do you call it? Into the computer.
That's because it's ones and zeros.
Right. I have to in each program just set the levels on it, and some of them you can't set levels on. But it for some reason it never overmodulates. So
because it's being transduced into ones and zeros.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not an analog signal in the way we're used to.
Yeah, I remember how complicated our lives used to get, and now it's all simplified down to ones and zeros. in just about everything we do. You know, people don't. If you don't understand what we're talking about, folks, is that basically digital is just a series of ones and zeros, and it's the combination of the ones and zeros that creates a pattern that makes whatever happen. So the sound that's
on turns things off.
Yeah, turns things. It's like many millions of light switches being turned on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. So, why did they call it ones and zeros? Why didn't they just call it negatives and positives?
They used to call it new math
because it's
and I didn't get that either.
Because it's the what is it called? The 8-bit. It's one and zero are the only. What is that called? I mean, I learned it back 35 years ago, 40 years ago in college.
Yeah.
When I took computers, the base computer language is
binary code.
Binary, yeah, and it's 1 and 0. That's why those are. It's on or off. That's the. If you can do a binary, it's eight positions, and it's either 1, 0, and each of the 8 positions is going to be 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And that's what makes up computer language.
If you have a 16-bit system, it's better than an 8-bit system because you have more infinite combinations, right?
Well, you're well over because there was no 16-bit systems when I took that class.
Yeah,
so
but I think
most go up. I have no idea.
Are they 16-bit today or 32-bit? I think.
What about 64? I think it's 64.
64.
But I still think it breaks down to the 8-bit system in the end. I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Einstein Show. Yeah. So anyway, technology that all of this entails, I used to be so good with, Rob. I used to be just terrific with it. And as each new thing starts to come out, I don't get it as much as I used to. In the old days, I would just absorb all this stuff, Yeah. And now it just gets to be. I mean, I look at an instruction. I look at this board I've got here, okay? And I know I've got audio going into this pot, and I got audio going into that pot. The volume switches, folks. And I've got a place here to listen to my earphones, and there's a place for my microphone and Marjorie's microphone. But then there's a whole bunch of stuff here. I can't figure out what the fuck it does. Like,
that's the stuff I don't touch.
It says STRTNs. I assume that means stereo return, and it's a volume slider. Now, and up above, I have a thing that says ST input, I guess. All right.
So now you know why it is that I want to go out and buy a radio board. Because you would have learned, this is not new technology, but this is the difference between working in a radio station and working in a recording studio.
Yes.
Right? Or television, where you do, you're sending audio out to different places, and I never, I'm not comfortable with that stuff.
Like I have a stereographic equalizer on the board, and I have no idea how to get it to work. I've tried everything, and it doesn't.
RTFM.
Huh?
RTFM. Could you translate that, please, Rob?
RTFM?
Yeah. Read the fucking manual.
No, but I read the manual, and it says, this is the stereographic equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How
do I get this mic to be affected by that equalizer? How do I get the output of this board affected by that equalizer?
Well, you have to push that button that makes it live, and then you can make the adjustments.
No, I have it in the main mix position and in the equalizer in position.
All right.
Okay.
And are you getting a bunch of pots that you can see that you can adjust for the different levels of frequency?
No.
So, the mids, the highs, the lows.
Oh, yeah, that I can do.
Well, that's the graphic equalizer.
No, but I have a graphic equalizer with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slider switches, and if they're in the middle,
all that is if you adjust those, it'll adjust your tone.
Here's what I would suggest.
No, I've tried it. Look, I can change this all I want. I'll put them all high. Okay. Oh, okay. Nothing's changed. No.
We hear it.
Yeah, we hear it.
Oh, you hear it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, big difference.
So here's your problem. You're not listening to the right return.
Yeah, you don't have a solo, I think, on that.
You're not listening to, in your monitors or in your earphones, you're not listening to the right return, because when you did that, it really changed everything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
What you're feeding to air is not, it's like you're not listening to the air chain.
No,
yeah,
okay.
So there's got to be a solo or something that you can push.
So when I change something like when I change something like this, does my sound change now when I did that?
Oh yeah,
it does. Okay, so how do I hear it?
That's the problem. Here's what I would recommend, and this is what I do when I buy a piece of equipment. I go to YouTube and I Google on YouTube. I search for the product name, like Mackie, whatever the model number is.
Yeah.
And then there'll be any number of people who will show you how to set it up, how to use it, and there's all kinds of information about that device there. Don't watch the unboxing. There's so many unboxings. People go, oh, I just got this new mixer. Here's the box.
Yeah.
I open the box. Inside the box, here's the mixer. Here are the cables.
The foam.
Yeah, and it's like ridiculous. But if you'll find,
and then they get, those guys get like 500,000 hits.
Yeah,
and I'm sitting here trying to get 200 people to listen to me. I mean, I may as well just like open a box or unzip my pants or something.
But that's what I would do. I did that with the mixer I have. But quite frankly, I'm still comfortable with production or program and audition. And
you know what I think?
Alex,
I think the reason for it is that I have you guys on my main output. In other words, the audio for the video that I'm recording, and the YouTube live and all of that, and your Skype is all coming off of a main output. Apparently, maybe the USB output doesn't have this sound. It doesn't do the sound.
So I'll tell you what, whatever you did, you're sounding distorted now.
I'm sounding distorted.
Alex, last night you used your reverb.
Let me turn this off.
I said something.
Am I okay now? Am I better now?
It's a little tinny, but
a little bit. It doesn't sound right.
A little bit. How's it now?
That's better.
Better. Oh yeah, it's because I've got your output too high. Is what I've got.
Okay, so last night you put your reverb on, and you said something, and I said something while the reverb was on, and what I said came out on your reverb. It's because you're running it into the same things.
Can you hear the reverb now?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, I can. And but I'm not hearing my voice coming through your reverb at the moment.
It is.
It is.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Yeah.
Okay. So wait a minute. Let me turn something down a little bit here on my Skype, so that I go to the tools. Come on. Go to audio settings. I'll bring it down just a bit. Is it better now? Is it okay now? Huh?
Back to normal.
What I would suggest is look at your watch, figure out how far into the show you are, and then later listen to the recording when you changed your graphic equalizer settings.
Yeah. Is my audio okay now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yes,
It's fine now. Okay, it's perfect. No distortion or anything like that. Okay, fine.
What you need to do is you need to make sure that you're feeding well, and you probably will feed. I mean, what you're feeding air is like what you're feeding to that you're recording right now, and that you're feeding live. Is it the same feed as to what you got in your earbuds?
Yeah.
And is it the same feed that what you're feeding Skype? This is why I don't like any of this equipment, because I can't figure any of that crap out.
But basically, my audio sounds fine now.
Yeah. Right now, your audio sounds fine.
Okay, good.
Here.
Yeah. Well, it might have been a little distorted because I might have had it on a little bit. I've turned it down just a tad on the on Skype. And
it's perfect now.
It's perfect. Okay. Well, that's all that matters then. But I think that it has something to do with it. I can't hear the main output. So somewhere here, I could probably plug a pair of earphones in and hear the main output. So.
But you should be able to hear it through your earbuds.
No, but I don't. I don't.
Yeah, well, what are you feeding your earbuds from?
I'm plugged. I'm plugged into the phone, the earphone plug. It says phones. Yeah, I'm plugged into phones.
It's the studio monitor.
It's not the final mix monitor. Is that it?
I don't know, because on mine I have a monitor and I have a phone.
See,
pod.
All I'm saying is, I'm getting too old for this shit. And you're right. It would be nice to have just a nice radio board here. But that would take up too much room.
You should see the small ones they got now.
Oh, really?
Oh, they got some really nice ones.
But what would happen is that you'd have to flip the switch or press a switch when you want to talk. Otherwise, you'd be muted, right?
What do you mean?
Don't those radio boards have it set up to where you key the mic?
Yeah, so what?
You turn it on. You turn it off. Yeah. You just well, what do I do here? I slide mine up and I slide mine down. Or I can just cut it in and out if I want to. So how's that different?
Oh, well, I don't know. I think a radio board gives you more flexibility not to
well, it's simpler. It does
easier.
Yeah. Much easier. What I would love to do, I wonder, and I know I have a friend who has one of these. A lot of the control boards we used in the old days. Who was the main maker of control boards?
McMartin?
No.
That's who I used to use.
Who's McMartin? I never heard of McMartin.
It was an 8-pot board. It's what we used at our station.
Yeah.
McMartin was analog board.
The main group who made control boards for radio stations was Gates.
Wow, that's a long
time ago. And what he has, the best board they made was a thing called the Gates Yard, and it's exactly a yard wide, wide, and has all the pots there and VU meter and all that, huh?
Rotary pots or slide
rotary
pots?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you could in the center.
The problem with those boards.
Yeah.
The problem with those boards is they would be difficult because you're using unbalanced inputs in your studio. You need balanced. There was nothing
difficult. You just turned them up, and if you're paying the meter, you turned them down.
No. I mean, like you can't with those old Gates boards. You can't plug in your typical RCA jacks into it. Everything is balanced inputs.
Well, you use Canon connectors.
Got to use Canon connectors.
Well, that's what I use. That's what I use in here. In this board.
But all your equipment that you're connecting, how do you connect the computer up to it? How do you connect your audio?
Oh no, that's different. I put those into line inputs.
Right, but you don't have that on an old Gates board.
Right.
So that's the problem with those. I mean, I have a friend who I went to college with. He was the chief engineer at my college radio station and spent 30-odd years at ABC as
what did they do?
Engineer.
What did they do with turntables, for instance? How were they hooked in?
Into one of the pots.
They have preamps.
You need preamps, so you wire the turntable to the preamp, and then there's a balanced input into the pot for the turntable.
Right.
So I have a friend who's got one of those big Gates boards.
Yeah.
With the rotary pots at his house. He sent me a photo of it. I'm jealous as all get out, but the problem with it is, it's you have to be an engineer to be able to work on a board like that.
Yeah, the other problem, the thing was it was Walter Sabo who owned this Gates Yard. I don't know if he still owns it, but when I saw that board, it was just brought back memories because the hours I spent sitting in front of one of those things was incredible. And in each of the pots in the center, they had these discs they sent with it, where you could just glue these discs into it. So you'd have a pot that were red, and those were maybe the microphones, and then you have pots that were yellow, and those were like the turntables, and then the tape machine might be green.
You're right. I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I worked on a board like that.
Yeah, and I spent many a year in front of boards like that.
Yeah.
You know, with reel-to-reel tape machines and the early cart machines.
This looks interesting. It's called a Studer. Yeah, and it's an on-air digital mixing console.
Yeah, well, fuck that. We want the old analog.
All right, let me go back.
We want to go to analog.
There are some really good, very compelling boards that cost about $1,600, and they're radio boards, and they have VU meters and everything. And they even have, if you wanted it, they have USB versions. They've got Bluetooth versions. They have versions that come with a built-in for the phone. The phone, what do you call that?
Coupler?
No, well, there's a name for it. I can't think of it right now. I have a head cold. But these boards, they're brand new, and you can buy them at BS. What is it? BSW? Is that the name of the broadcasts? Can't think of the name of the company right now. But I've been looking at these boards, and I keep drooling, thinking this is going to be the answer to me having a studio that I understand the whole thing, rather than I don't know where returns and mix effects and all this other crap that I just have no clue about because I never took a recording course.
Yeah. Well, I
mean, I think about recording.
Yeah. You know, I mean, Phil sent me his old board, his old Behringer, which I can't use because there's no room for it.
That's
give
the same
it to somebody if you don't want it.
Huh?
The exact same board I have.
The big one?
Yep, that's the one I have.
Isn't that too much board?
Well, you know what? For me, because I like to do music and it's not enough line inputs for me. I need more line inputs. There's too many there are a lot of inputs on there, but only like 4 of them are line inputs. Everything else is a mic input.
Well, any one of the mic inputs on this Mackie, right below it, are line inputs. You can use either the line inputs or you can use the microphone inputs.
Behind it, you have.
Oh, I looked in back of it last night. That thing.
But they're not stereo.
A few of them are.
Yeah, just 4. Well, on the Behringer board, only 4 of them are.
All I'm saying was, Phil, what did you need that board for? Well, you know, were you going to record bands?
No, I looked on the internet and it said that this was a good board, and I bought it used. And then when the pot started getting scratchy and one of the channels stopped working, I think it was channel 1, but then it started working again.
I'm starting to have trouble with mine.
Yeah, I'm just going to get another one.
I mean, eventually I'm just going to hook that thing up and play with it and clean it up and so on.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Enjoy
Anyway, yeah. I mean, I love this new Mackie I bought. It's terrific. But you say my voice is not distorted now and it's all fine.
No.
Okay, that had something to do with the main out, which I have driving both the audio for YouTube. And do I sound good out there? Do I sound fine? It says it sounds fine on YouTube, according to Kevin Stopper. Kevin, thank you, Kevin. Yeah. Okay, good. I just want to make sure because this is all, you know, I just put this board in the other day and it went in pretty easy, you know, so I had no major problems with it. And my other board, the volume sliders were getting
noisy.
Hinky. No, not noisy. You slide down and it would break up, so I had to keep spraying it. But the spray, you know, would only work for a short amount of time, and then
right. Yeah, they've gone bad.
You see, in the old days, folks, when we had bad pots on a board because they would get scratchy, you used a thing called carbon tetrachloride, and you would just clean the pots internally with the carbon tetrachloride and then smooth the sound out, and it was good to go for months and months and months, you know. You know what I found out today?
User serviceable, not like today.
You know what I found out today, and I didn't realize this, and I'm glad, and I'm very calm about it, because I bought a TV set. I bought a very cheap TV set. I bought a TCL Roku. And it's a 4K and it looks great. And, you know, we needed it for the living room, which we don't spend a lot of time in watching TV. So, because the other one broke. And so we bought this thing, and it was $365. and it's fine. It's great 4K and, you know, all of that. And it has the built-in Roku. So anyway, I, of course, worried about what happens if it breaks. And so we went and got I think it's a 5-year warranty for service. All right. It was $35 at Costco. Right? Because it's always based on the cost of the set, and the set was so goddamn cheap, it was $35, okay? So I went, gee, what happens now if this thing, let's say I just bought it and it breaks. And what do I do? I mean, how do I pack this thing up again and haul it down to Costco and get it fixed or return it? And then I looked at the warranty. The warranty is for people to come out to your house and fix it.
Wow. Wow.
They do most television repairs now in home. You don't have to take them into a shop somewhere. And the reason is because these things are so big and huge that nobody really wants to haul them anywhere to get them fixed. So they come to you. So really, the idea of house calls is now the purview of people who fix television sets.
Like the old days. Remember the guy used to come with the tubes,
and stuff.
You'd be sitting there hoping he could fix it in the house. Half the time he'd have to grab all the guts out and leave you with just the set.
Came with this.
And we'd go back there and play like we were on TV.
Yeah, he came with this big, heavy thing, luggage kind of thing, and he opened it up, and there were all the tubes, and
all his testing gear.
And he would look in the back of your TV sets had tubes, folks.
In the 80s, I had a.
Well, wait a minute, he would look in the back, and he would look to see which ones didn't light up, and those were the ones he would replace. Yeah, what were you going to say, Phil?
I had a 32-inch RCA,
yeah,
and it was so heavy it took 4 people to lift it up, and it was a behemoth. And what happened was I moved, and the TV went on its side or face, and a board cracked. And it cost me $500 to have a guy come out and change the board. But this thing was so heavy you couldn't move it.
Shecky had, up until about a couple of years ago, a 36-inch Sony.
Yeah.
You want to talk about heavy?
Oh, wait a minute. It was a Sony. It's a Trinitron.
Yeah,
Sony Trinitron.
Yeah,
it was either 36 or 32.
Well, you know what's heavy? I'll tell you. You talk about change in weight. We have a TV set here that Marjorie bought when I first knew her. It's Panasonic, and it was a 30. It was a 20. It was a how many inches was it? I think it was a 45-inch screen. And that
was an expensive TV, probably 15 years ago.
$3,000 she paid for it.
Right.
And I wondered why she was paying so much for that. But anyway, this thing's sitting out there, and it's fucking heavy. Okay? Yeah. So then I get the old set, the LG we bought a few years ago, the 3D that blew on us, which I understand from the guy. He said, you could probably have somebody come in and open it up, and they'll probably find that it's a condenser that's blown or a capacitor that's blown.
Yeah.
And just replace the capacitor. And I might have them do it because it's a 3D set. And even if I never use it again, I could sell it because there are a lot of people out there who can't lay their hands on 3D TV sets anymore. And they're supposedly going up in price rather than down in price. But anyway, so that was really heavy. The one we took down last night, the LG, was heavy, but the new one we put up, it was half the weight. They're now just, I mean, they're really very light now compared to what they were. So,
And in the days of plasma TVs, they were pretty heavy.
Well, the reason why I think they made them lighter and wanted to make them lighter is because the shipping is cheaper for them. When they have to ship, a bunch of them, plus the amount of space they take up in a truck and whatever, you can probably put, in the place that used to put 100, you could probably put another 10 in there and ship it cheaper because it's probably a quarter of the weight of the old stuff. So
sure, and also the brackets that you had to use to put them on a wall were much larger than.
Well, I saw one set a while back where actually it had, you could literally hang it like a picture on a wall. It had,
Wow.
Wow, that light.
Huh?
Oh, was it the fabric-looking one?
No. It had like little knobs on either side, and then you could take the this wire and you put it between them, and you hang it on the wall.
Wow.
Just
like a picture.
Yeah. So yeah, but so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, another tech talk. It's better than medical talk, which we could get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote me, I think it was Tony, and said that he saw on Mike Allen's thing that a woman said that he had a stroke and that he was incapacitated. But, I don't know.
Well, wait a minute. I can go look. You mean on his Facebook page?
On the Mike Allen Facebook page.
Yeah, but let's see here.
Somebody wrote, I think it's maybe the last thing, and I wrote them back and said, this is what I heard.
Let me see here. Okay, Mike Allen. Here we go. Hi, Mike. Hope you're doing well. That's the last one that's there.
Yeah, but there's 3 or 4 comments under it.
Oh, yeah. There hasn't been online. Well, let me see here. In case people are not aware of the story, because maybe you weren't listening last night, there is a guy who calls Jack Bishop on his program, The Intersection, which goes on right after us. And he was on every night. Come rain or come shine. This guy was, that was
He was worse than me.
Huh?
He was worse than me.
Nobody's worse than you, Phil. But for some reason, I like you. I don't know what it is. It's a part of me that's really sick. But anyway, let's see here. It says he hasn't been online, hasn't answered his phone. Some lady answered, then hung up immediately after I asked for him. The number no longer works. If anyone can please send the police to conduct a welfare check. That's what you did, Phil.
Right, yeah.
As I'm worried about him. Then Linda Peacock writes, hi, Mike. Sorry you haven't gotten in touch with him. He had heart surgery over a year ago, and then he had a stroke on his right side a few months ago.
Really?
Why didn't we know about that? And he is in a rehab now, and it's going to be a while before he gets out. And then there's a phone number for you to call her if you like. Thank you for asking about him. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. So what she's saying is he's had a stroke, and he's in rehab now, and it's going to be a while before he gets out. But you'd think maybe he would call or get a hold.
Maybe he can't speak.
That's why Jeff would have been good to describe what goes on when you have a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jeff had a major stroke.
Yeah,
had to relearn how to talk, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, well, at least that maybe answers. But it says he had a stroke on his right side a few months ago.
Doesn't make sense because a few months. Well, wait a minute. It's been since.
It's been a month. I think.
A month,
I think we went into our break, and and coming out of it, he never called. What? He never called. So it would be something like the 25th of December or whatever. To now, that's about a month and a half. Somebody could say that was a couple of months.
Yeah. All right.
But, how bad a stroke was it?
But. Yeah, if he's totally out of it. I think what's happening is all the people where he lives are selling his shit, and that's why they're not answering the phone.
Not answering the phones. Yeah, well, he never sounded well.
No.
But it goes to prove that cigarette smoking causes heart disease, strokes,
But it gives you a good raspy voice. Do you know Nat Cole, who died of lung cancer, by the way? Nat Cole had smoked cigarettes all the time, and people said you got to quit smoking, and he said, I won't quit smoking because that's what gives me this sound. I'm afraid that if I quit smoking, this mellow sound in my voice will go away. because he had kind of a raspiness in his voice.
All he needed was a Mackie board.
Well, I mean, the thing is that's what killed him. But he didn't want to give up smoking because he was afraid it would affect the way his tonal quality, as it were. So
didn't a lot of radio personalities smoke because of that?
I mean, no, that's not why we smoke. We smoke because we were sitting in a studio and bored out of our skulls.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But I thought a lot of them just did it because of the voice. It did that to the voice.
Well, I really don't know.
But that was also the era that everybody smoked anyway. So
yeah. But I mean, in the case of Mike Allen, it didn't improve his voice. That's for damn sure.
No.
You know, and you could tell he was a big smoker. I mean, what you were hearing was a smoker.
Smoker's cough.
A smoker's cough, right?
Yeah, and he smoked while he was on the air and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean,
how does my voice sound to you, Kevin? Is it fine? Is it sounding good?
Yeah. It sounded good. I was listening on YouTube there, and I could hear the changes, but it sounded good at the end.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. You could hear what changes?
When you were messing around with it, with the reverb and the increase in the volume and the overmodulation, undermodulation, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
His equalizer, he changed his pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you got it laid out, it was fine.
No, okay, good. So what I did is I just turned off the equalizer.
Yeah. That sounds fine now.
But I'm not distorting or anything like that. All right.
No, you're not distorting.
Because whenever you do this kind of thing, you put in Rob knows this, whenever you put in all this new stuff, you got to tweak it. You got to tweak it, and you're tweaking it forever. You know, and you're hearing things and you're going, I don't know about that. You know, I was using an encoder to go out for the audio. That was a new one that the company made, and they were doing away with their old one. And then I listened to a playback of it on the air, and the recording had kind of this, the best way I can describe it was a phasing sound, you know, kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's hard to describe. But then I did it on Nicecast, their old product, and there was no problem. So there's something in their audio, in their new system. And the thing is, they're not audio people. They're engineers. No. They're programmers. And they go, ooh, you know, I was saying last night, they jerk off to everything they do, you know.
Yeah. They like the circles on Skype.
Yeah, they love the circles on Skype. Look, we've got circles. Oh, it
sounds good. Move on.
Yeah, this will beat out anything, you know. So anyway, so I had to work that out. I had to work this out and that. But it's tweaking little things, you know. It's tweaking the video. And then yesterday, I don't know why, but I was interviewing Ronnie, and we did 25 minutes. And then I went to the recording, and it was all fucked, the video recording. So
you're used to dealing with real equipment, too. This is funky equipment.
Well, this isn't funky, you know.
Well, I mean, you're dealing with your equipment going into funky shit.
What?
That sounds like a song.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is there was no reason why the audio should have just, you know, the video should have not been working. It's never failed on me, never. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it failed on me yesterday. So it's one thing or it's another, you know. And I just go, I'll be dead soon, so it doesn't matter, you know. Yeah. But today, girlfriend said to me, you know, Trump's going to get reelected.
It's about time you realize the truth.
And I looked at her. Then I looked at her and I said, I don't give a rat's ass. And I really don't.
Apathy, that's the
You know,
step.
I want to, in the next couple of years, because it's only going to affect me moderately. It's going to affect younger people more. It's going to affect some of you more than it's going to affect me. I'm retired and blah, 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 and all of that. But just the sheer entertainment of seeing how much he can ruin this country it's a wonderful show to watch. You know?
That's true, and if it can survive, too.
Huh? And if it can survive, well, you know, I said that when somebody said, well, we got Trump now, and I went, well, don't worry about it, because this democracy will survive. Stop it, Phil. Obama wasn't terrible. Obama wasn't doing anything that was ruining this country. He may have made some decisions you disagreed with, But, I mean, he's not doing the kind of destruction that Donald Trump is doing.
He overregulated the country.
No, Phil.
The banks are starting to merge again. BBT Bank and SunTrust Bank are going to be merging.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. We're going to have another too big to fail, or whatever it was called, and
yeah,
and we're on our way. Stop it.
He ain't gonna stop it.
But I just looked at her and I went, I don't give a shit. You know, I'm so tired of worrying about this. I said, if he gets reelected, then I said the only thing that bothers me, I said, if I was younger, what I would do in that case, if he was reelected, is I would move out of the country. But, at my age, you're not about ready to pull up stakes and move to another country, So the best I can do is just sit here and go, fuck them.
Moving to Vermont's like moving to another country.
Well, it's just that at my age, you just don't think about moving to another country. When I was younger, even like under Nixon and things like that, I considered it from time to time because it was something feasible for you to do. You could pick up stakes. You didn't have that much. Everything went in the trunk of the car, and you took off, But, I mean, I feel sorry for all the younger people who are coming up now. And I feel sorry for a lot of those middle-class people right now who supposedly the so-called tax break is coming to bite them in the ass. There are people that last year got, there was this one family that got $10,000 back, and this year they're going to owe $10,000.
Well, I was thinking about it because if I was still working and not laid off, I'd have been screwed.
Really? How?
Yeah, I would have been screwed. But now that I'm in the poverty level, I'm fine.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, I'm still screwed. Because I got to.
At least I think anyway.
I got a working wife, and between us, even if I didn't have a working wife, between us, we, with the Social Security and things like that, we make more than what would be considered poverty level.
I don't know yet, but I think I'm okay. Because of the tax thing, I don't pay $10,000 in property taxes. I think I'm under that, and.
But I saw people who were saying, who are being really affected by this, that this so-called tax break turned out, for the middle class at least, to be a thing that came to bite them in the ass.
Yeah, you can't take the mortgage deduction anymore.
No,
that's can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
You can?
It's the property tax.
No, I just did.
It's property tax.
Yeah, it's maxed at $10,000.
Oh, that's what it was, maxed to $10,000.
Yeah. So people that aren't paying as much property taxes, like on the East Coast, that don't pay as much rent or whatever, right? I guess or house payments, but they pay a lot in property taxes. They're going to get screwed, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys pay a lot of property taxes out there, right?
Are high. And I think the property tax on the East Coast is much higher. In California, we had Proposition 13, which is that 1% plus a few things that they tacked onto it. Yeah. And we've had that since the 70s. Yeah, the 70s. It was early 70s or mid 70s. And so our property taxes are actually kind of reasonable in California, as in comparison to other states.
Am I wrong? But is it Florida where they don't pay property taxes at all?
No, they don't have state tax.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the point is that a lot of, and the other thing that I saw today was that last year when Congress gave these tax breaks, about something like 700 different companies were handing out bonuses.
$1,000 bonuses.
$1,000 bonuses. So it was felt that they would be doing this every year. They're not doing it this year. They did it.
Their budget.
They did it once.
Yeah, their budget is now based on the new.
Too.
It's based on the new paradigm.
Which means that now what they're going to do is they're going to keep more profit and keep buying back their stock. So Trump gave away all of our wealth to the wealthy, and our grandkids, not mine because I don't have any, are going to pay for it.
Yep.
So again, it's a redistribution of wealth.
No, that's what socialism is. But
no, Phil. We're talking. This is capitalism. This redistribution of wealth is courtesy of capitalism, Phil.
Yes.
Right.
That's why they want a 70% tax for the rich.
And why are you suddenly so on the case of socialism? You know, you never were before, but now since our president is mentioning socialism, it's the new mantra. It's the new mantra, Phil, and you're a puppet.
It's immoral because it doesn't.
Oh, jeez, Phil, don't even start. Don't even start. Okay, because you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You're confusing socialism. To begin with, last night you confused socialism with communism. Okay?
It's the same thing.
No, they're not.
It's just a baby step towards communism.
I see.
There he goes.
A baby step towards
capitalism
communism.
and democracy aren't the same thing.
That's true. They have nothing to do with one another.
That's right.
Well, either do socialism and communism.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Let me put it this way. You know, a democracy is a form of running a country, and the freedoms engendered in that. And communism and socialism are economic forms.
But
really?
Also
wait a minute, let me finish, Phil. They're economic forms. In South America, there was a wonderful South American leader by the name of Salvador Allende in Chile. And what he did is he was a socialistic, had a socialistic, rather a communistic democracy, which is absolutely possible. But the Americans didn't want the Americans to know that you could have a communist democracy, and so they went down there, we went down there and overthrew him and put in Pinochet, who turned out to be one of the worst dictators in the history of South America.
Well, you know, these programs work for about 20 years, and they work as long as the Americans are paying for their military. As soon as, you know, you get these homogeneous countries.
What are you talking about, Phil? It's capitalism that survives under military need.
Social Security's worked for over 80 years.
Yeah, isn't that what FDR started to stop communism in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
The military is socialism.
Military socialism.
Well, there's a lot of things that are socialism that, you know, your family is socialism. Your wife and husband, they can buy their salary.
What, Phil? You don't know what socialism is. You have no concept.
Yes, I do. It's an unfair, immoral system of redistribution of wealth. That's what it is.
No, but you're throwing in terms like immoral, and that's not part of the description.
Well, it is for me.
Yeah, it is for you because you don't know what it's all about.
Okay, so tell me I don't know what it's all about.
You don't know what it's all about. You have no concept. You think communism and socialism are almost the same, and they're not.
Yes.
To begin with, if you want to say communism is a terrible system, I will tell you that it is. Yes, I would agree with you 100%. But socialism, I would love to see this country be a socialist country.
And with communism, you have the government ownership.
We're not talking about communism. We're talking about socialism, Phil.
But with socialism, many times you have the people that work at a certain thing own the company. But you know somebody had to start it, somebody had to invest in it, and it's a redistribution of wealth.
Let me say this: in socialism, I think the means of production are the purview of the people because you have people running companies and they're building the cars and so on, and they're making a fraction of what the people at the top of the company are making. And that's wrong. Right. And that's wrong. But, Akira, I'm trying to remember his name, Akira, whoever, who started Sony and was one of the richest men in the world, said he never took more than $300,000 a year in salary because he felt that the leader of a company should not make more than, say, 5 times, 6 times what the average worker in his company makes.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
That anything else is immoral.
Well, the thing is that with risk.
The means of production. The means of production should belong to the people.
Yeah. But if that's the case, risk, okay, so if you start a business, I agree, you're putting risk in. But what about these CEOs that get these jobs with these great parachutes? There's no risk there.
Like Alex says, that's a whataboutism.
No, that's not a whataboutism. That's not a whataboutism at all, Phil.
Yeah, that's not a whataboutism. That's,
if you invest,
we're still talking about the exact same thing here. We're not talking about I didn't reflect back on something else.
If you let me end. If you invest in a company, you can lose your investment. Right. If someone is working in a company and they're paid to do a job and the job goes away, they lose their job. They can get another one, but they're not on the hook for the investment and capital that has to create the company.
Usually when companies go belly up, the people who head those companies, and they're not small people like you, Phil, who just has a small little company and a couple of people working for them. These are people who have massive corporations, and when they fail, they walk away with billions of dollars. Right. Even though their company failed. We read about these guys who, when a company went belly up, he walked away with, $1 billion. And you go, what? You fucked over this company and you get rewarded for that?
The term golden parachute, we hear it all the time.
Right. Well, that's not right either. I think that people's compensation should be based on their productivity. And if you lose money,
here's the argument for the golden parachute. You're somebody like, I don't know, Les Moonves, who's at one company, and then CBS wants him, and he has to leave that company where he has a solid job to go to this other company where, who knows what's going to happen, and so he wants a golden parachute in case they let him go. That's the reason why some golden parachutes exist. Others exist. Who was it? The guy who's the head of iHeartRadio. What's his name?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember his name now because I knew him years ago. He started MTV.
Sam Hart.
I know who you're talking about.
Bob Pittman. Bob Pittman, I think, has a thing in his contract that if the company went belly up, he was going to walk away with hundreds of millions of dollars. And you're going, he gets hundreds of millions of dollars for not doing the right thing. He is the head of the company after all. He's the guy who should be responsible if it fails.
Yeah. Didn't the gal from Fox that went over to NBC, Kelly, what was her name? Megyn Kelly. Yeah. Did she come away with like $24 million?
Yeah, because they did.
Contract.
She had a contract, and the contract.
She got her entire contract.
Yeah, the contract had to be fulfilled, as it were.
Yeah.
That in a way is different from business because.
Well, Alex had that.
I see that's a little different than executives and companies who get golden parachutes, in my opinion, because you have what's the word I'm looking for?
Hold on a second.
A contractor, an entertainer.
Yeah, they're not the head of the chain.
Yeah, they're and their careers are really fragile.
Yeah,
and it's like baseball players or football players,
right?
Well,
in my case, I walked away. They had to pay me. What was it?
For a year and a half?
They had to pay me some for a year and a half, or no, 14 months, something like that, a year and a half. When I left at Live 105 in San Francisco, but that's because they wanted out of the contract and they had to pay the rest of it. Now, they, part of the reason why they don't mind paying off the rest of it is if I suddenly wound up getting another job somewhere, then the difference in price they could take off of what they owe me. But, they had a contract with me and they had to fulfill it. That's the different thing altogether than golden parachutes and whatever. But all I'm saying is, I have been a believer that the means of production should belong to the people. That the companies that don't return a large portion of their profit to their people who work for them are being immoral.
Well, I believe, on the other hand, that
what's immoral? Wait a minute, Rob? What's immoral?
Exactly what you said. That is because Phil keeps saying that socialism is immoral. What you just said is immoral.
What?
Right.
what you just said about the companies not returning.
Oh, not returning. Okay. In other words, you agreed with what I was saying. Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I belong to a group called a co-op.
Come on,
a co-op. I own a share of the co-op, and they return profits to me, as well as the other hundreds of people that own shares in it. And this is not socialism. This is a group of investors that invested and created an entity that pays them back. But I have a stake in that entity. I paid to have a stake in that entity. Mm-hmm. When somebody else works for a company, they're being paid for their time. And they're being paid for their expertise.
Yes, but they're being paid.
That's capitalism.
No, but they're not getting bonuses. They're not getting a share in the company. That? I mean, several companies in recent years have gone to where the people who work there are the shareholders. They own the company as well. That's acceptable. That's acceptable.
And those companies are typically very successful.
Yes,
because people really
you want to know one of them that you see every day? UPS.
Yeah.
It's owned by the employees.
Yeah, the employees are the stockholders.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's you could say that's socialism.
I think the Green Bay Packers are like that.
Are they?
Yeah.
They're owned by
they're owned by the fans.
The fans, yeah.
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 You buy stock when you go to those games.
I mean, I think that what we're saying here is, why should companies make billions and only return millions back to the very people on whose backs that company was built?
They do return it. They return it to their shareholders.
No,
to the
you mean the shareholders? Those are the people who do nothing. They do nothing.
They made an investment.
No, they do nothing.
So are you saying the people that have a retirement, that make an investment in a company, and they live off that return, that's for their retirement?
Very minor amount of the people out there who collect the proceeds off of these things. The main people. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
How many people making $15 an hour going out buying any stock?
It's not the $15 an hour people, but it's the people that worked all their lives, saved, invested, had a 401k, Roth IRA, whatever it is, and they took that money.
How about those people who could never afford it because they were working for a corporation that didn't pay them enough of a decent wage that they could invest in stocks?
And a lot of corporations gave them stocks. You even got Sirius stock.
Yeah, for about 2 years until they started getting cheap as fuck.
You know what? It's
when
foolish.
Companies go down, shareholders don't get paid back. They lose.
Right.
The greediness of these companies is actually foolish, because if you share the wealth with people, people are going to spend the money you give them.
That's called getting mugged. That is the most immoral thing I can think of. If you got 3 people in a room, one guy has $100 and the other 2 guys want it, and they beat him up to get it, then that's immoral.
No. What am I saying? I'm saying that pay people that pay like American companies used to be, where they took stock in their employees, where they looked out for their employees, and their employees looked out for them. That's when things were good in this country. When Donald Trump talks about making America great again, the only thing I can think of that makes any sense in that slogan is when people had jobs that they could go to every day, and you didn't have to be a college graduate, and you didn't have to be a lawyer or a doctor or an attorney, but you could get a job that was maybe you delivered bread. Maybe
I worked for Ford and I was damn proud of it, or I worked for Chevy and I'm damn proud of it, or I worked for USS Steel and I'm damn proud of it.
Yeah,
that's
but
the way it
got to the point where people wanted what other people had, and they didn't want to work for it.
No, I disagree with that.
No, that's ridiculous.
I have friends. I have a guy that I worked with for years who worked on Long Island when Grumman was only on Long Island, before it was Northrop Grumman. That was a killer, kick-ass company who, I mean, those people who got those Grumman jobs, they lived very nicely on Long Island. They were paid very well. They were treated very well. They were loyal. employees. They wanted their kids to work there.
They wanted their friends to work there.
What did Grumman make?
Airplanes.
And what
buses.
else?
They made airplanes, buses. I don't really know.
Wasn't it a military?
Whatever.
Thing?
They were happy to work there.
They were making tanks. They were making.
They also made airliners and things like that too.
Well, yeah, they also
they built airplanes.
And during that this was a great company that once it merged with Northrop, it became an Americanized company, and everything dried up.
The corporations became pyramids.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's happening again with these.
And the lower guy gets screwed, and the higher guy walks away with the money.
Right. And the more
it was always that way.
Cash, no, it wasn't.
No.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. They're called Ponzi schemes.
That's right. And it started.
And it's greed. It's greed that creates the ability for a Ponzi scheme to work.
See, you're talking right.
But it's not the greed of the guy at the top. It's the greed of the guy at the bottom.
Phil, all I'm saying.
No, you're not. You're talking.
He knows he's going to get screwed.
You almost got it,
Phil.
anyway. You almost got it.
He knows he's going to get screwed, but he does it anyway. It's like the story of the scorpion and the frog. You know, you know it's going to get. You're going to get stung.
He has to eat, so he goes to work, and he still gets screwed. Yes, but the guy at the top continues to screw him.
Here's a guy. There are people who pursue the American dream, and they spend all their life working at jobs that, they were told you work hard, life's is going to reward you if you work hard. Right. So he works hard, and then he never manages to get ahead. He only stays right where he can. He doesn't make enough that he spends everything that he makes, and he's not being extravagant or anything else. And years later, when he's lying on his deathbed, he goes, why the fuck didn't I do something else? Why was I always in a position where I was making other people rich, but nobody made me rich for the effort?
But I don't know that anybody is saying, back in the day, in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, I don't think anybody was saying they wanted to be rich. I think people just wanted, and that's how I feel. I just want to be comfortable, earn a living. I'm not striving to be rich. It used to be you got a job with a company and you knew that you were going to be taken care of by that company. That company looked out for you. You looked out for that company.
Well, the question is when we yes, Charles, what were you saying?
Phil,
I said the union screwed that up.
No, the union.
So to some degree, you're right, Phil. To some degree, and I'm working in the broadcast business in New York. Mm-hmm. I know horror stories about the New York name it unions at the networks and the things that went on. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean it's a broken system. That means, like every other system, it needs to be tweaked and fixed, not thrown out.
Yep.
Believe it or not, Phil, we wouldn't have 40-hour work weeks if it weren't for the unions.
Oh, there are some things that are good, but I don't think most people don't work 40 hours. They sit around the cooler talking about shit for about 10 of those hours.
You make assumptions, Phil, for the sake of argument that may not be true. All right.
No, I now have cameras in my store and I can see.
Well, maybe you got some lousy fucking employees, but
we all do. Because if we had good ones, our economy would be stronger.
No. The production of the workers has gone up and up and up and up, but their salary is stagnant.
The morality goes down.
Here's my question.
Not if you're on commission.
My question, Phil.
That's true.
What do you think is socialism? I mean, what to you is don't tell me about the evils of socialism, but tell me something that's socialistic that's bad.
Okay, I believe that socialism, if you
No, I didn't ask that question, Phil. You're not answering the question. Go answer my question.
I think it's a redistribution of wealth.
No, Phil, I didn't say that. I said, Phil, name something socialistic and tell me why it's bad.
Yeah.
I would say unions.
Why?
Because they are corrupt for the most part.
All of them are corrupt?
As far as
I got news for you. I have a union, SAG-AFTRA, and these people are not corrupt in the least.
Yeah, well, they're not based in New York.
Well, yes, they are.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
based in New York and Hollywood.
Yeah, well, the mafia has infiltrated.
Oh, I see.
Unions.
The mafia is in my union, Phil?
I would imagine so.
You're making assumptions here that aren't true. No, my union is if anything, we're the droopy dogs of unions. We're like, in
the carpenters and joiners union, for instance, in New York, it's all mobbed up.
Well, I don't think that was the case anymore.
And even the teachers union was mobbed up.
No, it wasn't.
I don't.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't.
That guy that lived in White Plains.
You're talking about what's his name? Yeah, he wasn't mob. Yeah. He wasn't mob.
Oh yeah,
no, he wasn't.
He was definitely mobbed up. He lived down the street from my temple.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
He lived over by Alan Funt.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember his name. His name is a joke in a Woody Allen film.
Really?
The city was
in the '60s.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his name. He was the head of the union, and no, he wasn't mob at all. You didn't like him because he took a tough stand and got the teachers some money.
Nah. There was so much mob action.
No, Phil, how do you know? How do you know this? Were you a teacher? Were you a teacher?
When they'd come to my father's parking lot with shotguns,
what did your father do for a living?
He was a contractor, a flooring contractor.
All righty, we're talking about a different business. We're not talking about the fucking teachers union.
Yeah, but that guy, whatever his name was definitely mobbed up.
No, he wasn't. I remember his story, and I remember that he wasn't mobbed up, Phil.
They were all mobbed up.
No, Jesus. You make these rash generalizations.
The guy lived a couple
Phil, to begin with, unions, I hate to tell you this, are not really socialistic. Okay? They are what we call collective bargaining, but it's not socialism. And I asked you the question, tell me something that's socialistic that's bad.
Well, it's bad when they take what you got and they give it to other people.
Phil, you're not answering my question. Bad. I'm saying name something. Something. Okay, is the police department bad? Is the police department bad, Phil?
No.
No. Well, it's socialistic.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. We all pay for it. We all pay for it, and we get the service of the police as a communal thing. No, yes,
you pay general taxes, and the police department is.
Oh, it's socialistic, Phil. It's socialistic because we're putting into this pot, and we're taking out of the pot, and we're having.
It's not all black and white.
For the with you, it is on everything else. Yes, Charlene just joined us. Charlene's got her hand up.
Is it Shanker?
Albert Shanker.
Albert Shanker.
Yeah.
When you said Woody Allen made a joke out of it, that's how it came.
Yeah, I think he said that he dies and he comes back. He's centuries later. He's defrosted or whatever, and they say, well, this thing, New York back in those days, when the city was taken over by Albert Shanker or something like that's the line, and everybody in the theater laughed because Albert Shanker. Yeah. So.
I remember him, in the area.
Yeah, so that made him a mobster. Was your father a mobster?
He had to pay to the mobsters. If you wanted to work, you had to pay.
Well, New York was one of those towns where the mob really had mob rule on a lot of things. I mean, anything that moved down the street of New York was controlled by the mob. Now, as to whether the union was mob controlled or not, but the
city was.
The trucks were.
Yeah, one of my father's biggest accounts was the Port of New York. Mm-hmm. So we put the carpet in the original World Trade Center when they built it. Mm-hmm. We did the Greek line ships. When the ships would come into the port, we'd pull the carpet out and start putting it in. And if we weren't done, we went to Bermuda, and then they flew us back. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, that was all pay to play.
Okay, but you're taking us away from the question I asked you, which I still haven't gotten an answer from you.
It's immoral.
No, that's not the question. Rob, what was the question I asked?
The question is, pick some socialistic program and say what's wrong with it.
Food stamps.
What's wrong with them?
It cripples people, and they stay on food stamps their whole life and for generations. Welfare is another socialistic program.
How would you solve the problem of families that can't feed themselves?
Well, families that can't feed themselves, you work with them, you give them education, and
Phil, isn't that socialistic?
Yeah, that is socialistic. Now that you mention it.
You're making an investment so that they can then support themselves.
You're really living in a dream world,
that's
Phil.
Socialistic.
Well, so what?
Socialistic.
You know, there are some things that are good and some things that are bad. And I feel
there is nothing wrong, Phil. There's nothing wrong with food stamps. Food stamps, in and of themselves, feed people, especially the biggest recipients of the food stamps and of the good that food stamps does are children. Okay.
So let me ask, so what you pick on when you pick a program is all of the things that are wrong with a program.
Not necessarily. There are good things with certain programs, but nothing's black or white. You know, there's a balance.
But what I'm saying is, you chose food stamps and you said that it's bad because of this. When you chose welfare, you said it's bad because of this, right? But those programs are designed and do help people who need. When my father was a little boy, they were on government peanut butter and government cheese because there was no work, there was no money. Was that bad?
No.
My father didn't wind up on welfare.
But did your father end up being trapped by that system generation after generation?
Yeah, well, you're saying that
there are many people that are.
Well, first of all, Charlene has her.
Forbin's on the chat there, and he says he was on food stamps for a year in 2008, and he needed it for $200 a month for when he was unemployment because he got laid off.
Good. Okay. Charlene has her hand. Charlene had her hand up. Charlene has her hand up, Phil. Charlene has her hand up, Phil.
All right.
Just keep your eye on the screen and see when somebody's got their hand up. Yes, Charlene.
When Rob said that about his family, I've always heard this thing that Ronald Reagan was so weird. His son wrote a booklet, like, Expose Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan, when he was a kid, they were on food stamps and welfare and everything because they needed it. But later on, when he became president, he's the one that started that heavy push to get everybody off welfare, get everybody off food stamps.
I don't think he was on welfare. He was the head of the Actors Union. He had a
Phil, we're not talking about when he was an adult. We're talking about when he was a child.
Ronald Reagan?
That's what she's saying.
No, she said his son was, and the family was.
Thought it was so odd that he had used all this, and he knew it because I guess he grew up in that family, but he couldn't understand how his father turned against things like that because it had helped him as a child.
You don't see tons of families being trapped year after year.
You know why they're trapped, Phil? They are trapped by virtue of the way it is administered.
And that's
no, Phil, no, it isn't. In fact, it's kind of capitalism. It's people who don't understand the poor and how to extricate them from that situation while at the same time giving them food, giving them money to live on. And what they do is, if you get up to a certain point, they pull the rug out from underneath you, and now you're making less and getting less food than you had the other way. It's that there isn't a system to get people off of it without them having to pay a large penalty by doing so.
There's a big gap between it.
And it's to the advantage.
You have no idea, Phil, because you don't have a heart for this sort of thing. You don't understand what it does.
It's to the advantage of certain political groups to entrap these people so that
yes, and you know who those political groups are? Capitalists who like to trap the American public into a place where they are subservient to the capitalistic system and to them making money.
That's bullshit.
And then they can blame it on the
Well, it's easy to say it's bullshit, but it's true, Phil.
No, it's easy.
Anybody disagree with what I just said?
Yeah, I disagree with it.
Yeah.
It's easy. You blame the capitalists like they're doing such a
bad
thing
Phil,
and take risks.
Phil, the ultimate end, if we take capitalism and we take it to an extreme, is pure and utter greed. All right? Well, and wait a minute, and we are entering that period of time where the very rich have a lot, and they are a small amount. Wait, let me finish. The rich own the largest amount of money in this society, and to the detriment of all the rest of us who don't. And that is called greed. And that kind of economy is doomed to failure.
I believe that the top 10% pay 90% of the tax burden.
Well, they own 90% of the money, so
but we're reaping.
Unfortunately, that's not true, Phil. They don't pay 90%.
They don't pay 90%. Where do you get that figure, Phil? Go look it up. Get it for us. Find it.
It's you don't have enough time, but
no, you don't have enough time because you're not going to find it, Phil. You're going to find that
it's not the percentage. It's the amount of money that's being.
The fact is that the top, I think it was, they said something like the top 3% of money people in this country own more money than the entire rest of the population in this country combined.
They're paying for the services that the other 95%.
No, it's greed. What are these people doing with their billions of dollars, Phil? Who needs $1 billion?
Oh, I guess guys like Microsoft and Berkshire.
No, those are companies. Those are companies, Phil.
Okay,
those are not individuals.
Gates. And we're talking about
Gates, a great believer in socialism. He's trying to give his money away.
Yep.
Right.
Warren Buffett.
So, and Warren Buffett.
2,000 billionaires. That's it. There's just 2,000 of them. So, and some of them don't give away anything.
Phil,
I don't know what
the fact is, means production should belong to the people. I'm sorry.
It's easy for you to say.
Whether you do it through stock or some other method, but the people who work should get recompensed for the fact, because who makes these companies great? The people who build the cars, who build the buildings, who build all this stuff, and they do it with their sweat. Right. Meanwhile, these assholes who are making the billions of dollars sit there in their high towers and just have their feet up on the table all day.
What's wrong with it? Because all it is
because it
give you this.
What has it ever got? What has it ever gotten you, Phil? Except a big Behringer board.
It got it for you. I got a Personas now.
No, yeah,
tough. But with capitalism, I agree to give you something that I earned. To get something.
Thanks for doing me the favor. But now, through my sweat and blood, I'm building the product that you're selling, and without me, you're going to have nothing to sell, and yet you don't give me shit. Yes,
but without
Rob.
The guy
yes,
that
Rob.
The company,
Rob.
You got nothing to build.
Rob.
So this is from Wikipedia. Half of the world's net wealth belongs to the top 1%. Top 10% of adults hold 85%, while the bottom 90% hold the remaining 15% of the world's wealth. The top 30% of adults hold 97% of the wealth. Does that make sense?
Well, they're also paying 97% of the services that everybody else is getting.
That's paying. Not true because of these giant tax cuts.
You also act. What happens is they gave these tax cuts out, saying, "Well, that means that companies will then have money to hire more people and to do more stuff." They haven't. No, they haven't, Phil. They did a survey. They did a survey a while back. Phil, they did a survey a while. Phil, shut up and learn. Shut up and learn. Shut up and learn. Shut up and learn.
Without the tax cuts.
Not necessarily.
That they said, well, then they'll use that money and blah, blah, blah. No, they won't. They sit there and they squat on it.
They're buying their stocks back is what they're doing with it.
Yes, exactly.
Artificially inflating the economy by buying back their stocks.
Right.
Well, we're going through a tough time right now. Our economy is taking a swing the other way because of what's going on with China and so forth.
But wait a minute. According to Donald Trump, it's doing better than it ever has. Well, and according to Donald Trump, by the way, he is right now building that wall.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's somebody with an erector set or something sitting on the border building a little thing.
Well, it's putting people to work. What do you got?
What do you mean? There's not one iota of work being done on a wall, Phil.
That's because the Congress is stalling funding.
No, he says they're building it right. No, he says they're building it right now, and they went out and looked and said, "Where are you building this fucking wall?"
They didn't look in the right place.
What, Rob?
He's lying.
He's lying.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. He's going to get
beautiful wall.
He's going to get 1.3 billion with this current thing to keep the government open. I believe. So, did I hear something about him doing the emergency thing and getting more money?
So he's going to take it from the military.
What he said he was going to do is take the emergency funds from California. So if we ever blow up or have an earthquake and all our shit blows up, and we won't have nothing.
Yeah. Well, Gavin Newsom finally figured that out, and he eliminated the bullet train or whatever.
Half of it.
Yeah.
So Phil, here's the great deal that your president made. This guy who's this amazing dealer.
The art of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
The Congress was ready to give him $25 billion. He settled for $1.6 billion.
Yeah, but there was some other things tagged on to $25 billion. Was it DACA or something else?
They said 1.7, and then he decided to take 1.3, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, he talked them down to 1.3.
Yeah,
he talked them down to 1.3.
No, I want $14 billion from El Chapo. He's gonna annex that money.
He's going to make Chapo pay for the wall.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, hey.
Why don't you go to him and get the money?
And he's not even Mexican.
Who, Chapo?
Yeah, isn't he Guatemalan or something? Or
no,
Colombian?
Just dig up one of his tunnels. It's probably in there.
He's involved with the Medellin.
Well, what happens is you can get El Chapo to pay for the wall, and then he can dig under it to bring the drugs in. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I don't think El Chapo's going anywhere this year.
He's happy because he doesn't want to be in a Mexican prison.
By the way, I just read is really happy in prison. Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby, yeah.
Yeah.
They say he's getting along fine with everybody. He looks upon it as a life experience, and they say he could not be happier. And that he loves being the teacher to all these other inmates, and they love him because, he's Fat Albert,
I was thinking the other day, I was just looking at the pictures. You know who El Chapo looks like?
Who? Let me see here. Wait a minute.
Wait.
You got it.
Wait a minute. I'm a little slow on the uptake. Who does he look like?
Who does he look like? From Dubai.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
He looks like... Are you saying he looks like Bree?
Wait till he calls in again.
Oh, boy. Bree is probably having a cat fit.
No, it is El Chapo.
You know what that means, Chapo, right? El Chapo.
It's shorty.
Shorty. Yeah.
He's probably watching right now, cringing.
That's how he fit in the tunnel.
He
looks like Bree.
Listen, that one tunnel he had that he escaped through, he actually had a motorcycle.
Really?
Yeah.
That they had there waiting for him, so he could zip through the tunnel.
Yeah, it was on rails.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, that's that
designed that whole damn tunnel.
That's our theme song, going like crazy. I want to thank you.
I think he did.
What?
Hey, not moving.
Yeah.
What?
The music stopped playing.
Yeah, I hope he didn't pull a Mike Allen.
What do you mean the music?
Say that.
You don't hear the music?
Hey,
no.
Thanks for that ear stuff, Phil.
Have you used it?
Wait a minute. Do you hear the music? Wait a minute. What happened? Oh, what do you know? We lost them all. Something went wrong with Skype. Okay, well, hey, it was the end of the show. It was a good time for Skype to kill itself. Anyway, what the hell happened to everybody? I don't know. They just disappeared. Oh well. They said they didn't hear the music any longer, and then something went wrong. What the fuck? Anyway, hey, thanks everybody for being with us. Thanks to our citizen panel for being with us tonight. Next is Jack Bishop and the Intersection. And I'm trying to remember everybody who was there. Rob Alfano, Phil Meyer, Kevin, Charlie Wallace, and Charlene Martinez. Hey, I got them all. My memories. I still got it. Anyway, That's it for tonight. I all of a sudden, Skype went, it just farted. Anyway, see you tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Same time, same station in life. And in the meantime, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye.